Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interaction between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTVC. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue. Hope springs eternal. That's one of the sayings over the centuries of our religious tradition. The business of business is business. That's a recent definition of the purpose of the free enterprise system. But what happens when there is a business of hope? Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today we have opportunity to give thought to one of the most important developments in recent times of how business enterprises have not only entered the educational field, but have, in a broader sense, nurtured the hopes of the younger generation. In helping us to identify some of the ways in which this process is taking place in our community is Margaret Harrison, director of the ITT Technical Institute of Austin, and two of its most recent graduates, Mike Henry of the electronics program and Brenda Rice of the secretarial program. We welcome you all.
Thank you.
And are delighted to have the opportunity to have you share with us something of your experience in regard to how there is hope in the element of business. Margaret, you as the director of this are in this as a money-making enterprise. I mean, ITT is not a non-profit corporation.
We hope not.
And you worked your best to not make it that way.
Absolutely.
But tell us just a bit about the training that is available to young people and persons, I guess, of all ages in your
We offer
curriculum.
two programs in the Austin School: Secretarial Technology, which is a one-year diploma program, and Electronic Engineering Technology, which is a two-year associate's degree program.
Mm-hmm. And now this is something which couldn't the students go to community college or get this in some other kind of educational institution besides through business?
They could. We like to call ourselves the hands-on university. In our program, the students take 2 hours of lecture and then follow that by 2 hours of lab, 2 hours of laboratory work. So what they learn in the lecture section, they follow right through and do it hands-on, get actually practical experience. And that makes us different. In other type education, you take mostly lecture courses with very little laboratory experience. With us, it's 50% lecture and 50% lab.
And it's all technical. There's no liberal arts, no other courses besides just either secretarial or electronic.
Our main emphasis is in the technical area. We do teach English as it applies to the secretarial program, or English as it applies to technical writing, or math for secretarial, or math for the electronics program, but only those general courses that apply directly to the technical areas.
Okay. And I think it'd be helpful, Mike, if you could tell us why you chose to go to ITT rather than to take some other route.
I'd enrolled in a school out in San Diego, one of the ITT schools out there, and then decided I wanted to come back to Texas. And when I got back here, then there was an ITT here also. So I decided that I'd look around here, and of the schools here in town, I liked ITT.
Okay, now what was there about it that made you like it?
Well, I went in and looked around, and I liked what I saw. I went and looked at the other ones, and I just wasn't impressed with my first impression. And that's basically what I based it on.
What impressed you was the fact that you could get right to it as far as your training for a job?
Yes, and the curriculum that they had, I read over their curriculum, and I liked it. So I decided I had to give one of them a try, and it looked like the one. It was also the one that was the most broad as far as in the States. If I wanted to stop here and go to another school, I could just transfer. Where the other schools around, you couldn't do anything like that.
But it was after you surveyed the options that you made the choice to do this. And is this the same thing true, Brenda, in your case, that you had some other things you could have chosen other routes you could have gone?
Yes, I had checked out other schools as well and wasn't impressed. They offered everything that I was looking for.
Okay, and the secretarial program. What is there, for instance, about what you would have at ITT that you wouldn't find in either a community college or some other source of training?
The wide variety of computer programs. I know in college you have to say, I think, be specific about which one you're going for, whereas we learned several.
Oh, I see.
You know, and I don't know of too many people that know the speed writing and things like that.
Okay, so as the representatives then of the two branches of ITT's program, the electronic and the secretarial, and Margaret is giving us the kind of the overall picture of what your business is, I'd like to come back and just think for a moment about how this whole field of business in education is suddenly with us in a big way. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago that you didn't hear of, for instance, businesses going into a grade school and do an adopt-a-school type thing, or IBM loaning their people to go and teach in either a college or even, I guess, public school. I've heard of people with great skills like that going into elementary schools, and so it's all part of a movement of like businesses sensing that they need to get in on the act in a way that they weren't feeling that need not that long ago. Can you comment on that?
Let me talk about Adopt a School for a minute.
Okay.
We at ITT have adopted a school, and we think that's kind of fun because we're a school who's adopted a school.
Okay.
And so even though we are a school, we also want to get into the act of helping another school. We've adopted an elementary school that we work with. To answer your question, we see that some of the motivators in private enterprise, in business, help to make us develop our educational program a little more cost-effective and present a model that could be used for public schools. A good example, we open our doors in the morning for classes at 8 o'clock, and we run 3 separate sessions of classes and close the door at night after 10. So the facility is used all that time during the day. In a public school situation, we generally start classes maybe 8 or 9 o'clock and end at 2:30. So we still, as taxpayers, pay for that facility, but we use it only a short period of time. Then we close it all down for the summer. We close it down for Easter break. We close it down for a Christmas break, where the private enterprise system helps us to produce a good product, but use our facility the whole time that we have.
Okay, so you're thinking that could be a possible model
Absolutely.
for the public sector to make better use of the facilities.
Absolutely.
Incidentally, I was just in Germany not too long ago, and I learned that the public schools there run from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's it.
Oh, dear.
And you have, among other things, a child care issue there. If it almost mandates a parent that stays at home to take care of the children when they get there, and parents are paid even to have, when they have children, to stay at home for a given period of time. So that's a little different from our situation.
Oh, yes.
I think, Brenda, don't you have children, and does that become an issue about how you do your schooling? And
Yes, I have to make sure that somebody was there to watch them when I went to school. You know, I wanted to be there in the daytime for them because that's when they're growing so much, is during the day. And I could take the 4 hours in the evening and go for an evening class.
So that's how the ITT program fit your needs in terms of it's having an evening program that enabled you to have child care while you were gone.
Yes.
By the way, I've had the opportunity to learn that the two of you were designated honors graduates of the program. And Mike, I don't want to ask you what's honorable about you here, but what is there that it gave you the incentive to excel there. Obviously, you did grade-wise and otherwise in some ways.
I guess it'd have to be what I did before I got there.
Okay.
I worked outside in this Texas heat. I carried cement blocks and railroad ties for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do that anymore. I definitely wanted to do something else. And I wanted an inside job in the air conditioning. So I went to school for one.
Okay, well, that's a direct answer. I think that people may be motivated because of if there's a dead-end job situation in front of them, that it's the sign of hope that there is a way of not doing what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that what you were doing outside if there's anything wrong with that, but you just prefer not to do it.
That's right. It'll make you old quick.
Mm-hmm. What did you do prior to besides that job? It seems to me I heard that you were involved in the military.
Right. I was a mechanic for 6 years in the military and a mechanic for 4 years before I went into the military. And those were both either real hot or outside,
Mm-hmm.
miserable conditions. Working in electronics, it's a fairly clean and air-conditioned field.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice.
What about the use of your capabilities and your mental and emotional and other aspects of your life? Do you feel that that's part of what hope is involving for you?
Yeah, there wasn't much hope in those kind of jobs. I couldn't see much advancement. I was always working for someone else, and I
Or to be your own boss more?
Yeah, there's only so much that you can do when you're doing the same thing over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Working on a car, working in the same room for 6 years. There's not a lot of hope in there.
Yeah. What about your job situation before you took the training?
It was a lot of running cashiers and, running registers and production work. Just simple little things.
And you weren't satisfied in that?
No, I knew that that's not what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that, I guess it's probably important, Margaret, you probably would concur with this, that people who do the cashier's work and the outdoor work and the kinds of things that Brenda and Mike did are needed in our society, and that work is as honorable as what any of us do.
Absolutely.
But it has to do somehow with this matter of fulfilling your potential, of if you've got more to give and more incentive to do something else, that this is the opportunity. And if there weren't this kind of training that you're offering, where would it be found? In other words, are you filling a niche with the program that you're in that wouldn't be filled otherwise?
Let me answer that by being a little personal.
Okay.
In high school, I decided that I wanted to go to college. I was not able to pay for that financially, and so I went to a vocational school.
Okay.
And I decided if I had a trade, then I'd have a way to work my way through college. I'd have a skill.
Okay.
So for me, it fit a real definite niche. It was a means to an end for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it with young people as well, that often they'll find that they're doing something that just doesn't please them. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just not what they want to do. And so to see people like Brenda and like Mike come through our program and all of a sudden begin to do things that they really want to do, that's the hope for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the excitement of it.
And you speak from personal experience in that regard.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you found that you were able to enter into a future on the basis of, the hope for you was this is Austin Faith Dialogue, Margaret.
Yes.
And, where does the faith factor enter into not just getting a job, but having a future? And were there times that you were... let's come back to you in just a minute.
Okay.
I'd like to pick it up with Mike and Brenda. Were there times that you were, as you were trying to find your way into the future, tempted to give up and found that your spiritual life kept you at it or gave you the incentive to keep on keeping on? Brenda, how did that work for you in any way?
Yeah, my father is a preacher, and I stayed on the phone with him many, many times, you know, going, can I make it, can I make it, you know, and he'll say, well, you're doing good, you're doing a lot better than you have ever done before, keep at it, you know. And there were times near the end I wanted to just say, I can't do this anymore, I'm tired, but inside I had a feeling I could keep on going and make it.
So the fact that you had a support relationship there with your dad was the way that faith was communicated to you.
Yeah, and yeah, my mother, you know, was also there beside me all the way, you know.
But you need a little boostering. And
definitely.
Did you ever need that too, Mike?
To get started, it took faith to have faith in myself to start. It had been a long time since I'd been in school. I'd been doing different things, but nothing like this, to where I had to have a lot of faith to get started. And that Sunday meal every week helped too. Mama's house is nice.
Oh, I see. That's a support system of another sort.
Right. You know, it's required.
Well, what about the business of hope in any of the ITT materials about, you know, the workplace today, the world of work? I think you're obviously trying to equip people to do what needs to be done, what there's a demand for. That the world of work today is not what it was just a decade, 50 years ago, sort of thing. And yet, how do you feel about your vocation, Margaret, as the director of this institute, as an expression of your faith, of giving hope? I suspect that unless you're on a program like this, you may not have a chance to actually talk about that kind of thing, but it seems to me that's appropriate to
It is.
have you share that.
I think that your faith often needs to have a little bit of legs on it. Your faith needs to work. Your faith needs to be doing something. And the way I choose to work out my faith is by running schools. I feel that it makes a very definite difference in the lives of people. It makes a definite difference in our society, training people for skilled work, particularly in the electronics field where this country tends to be sometimes a little behind. We're doing something that's very important. And I think that's working your faith out in a very practical way in the marketplace.
Okay. So you have that conviction as you go through from day to day in terms of this is a way that you can express what's most important to you. And I think that in terms of the practicalities of this, before we get completely away from that, Mike, where is it that you're working?
Crystal Semiconductor.
Okay, now, for those of us who are sort of behind the times, technically speaking, I mean, what happens there?
We design and test semiconductor products.
And how does that fit into, you know, the larger electronic industries? Is just one component in a larger whole?
No, we're a private corporation. We just make semiconductor products like all the other ones out there, but we're just a small company that's just starting up. Okay.
Now, what you're doing, you couldn't have done unless you went to ITT. Is that correct?
True. Unless I got school of some sorts. My background, I was a good worker, but I had nothing to do with electronics at all. I didn't know anything about it.
Okay, so this is an example, I guess, Margaret, of what you were saying, that you want to have people, when they come out, they've got a skill that can be put to use right away.
Absolutely.
And they're learning on the job. I mean, I think that's probably assumed that you do a lot of your...
That's when you start to learn.
That's right.
And but you've got to start with the training that you have in this program. Okay, now, Brenda, I'd like for you to just kind of indicate, if you would, please, what your training has meant to you in terms of, for instance, what you envision for your children. How old are your young ones?
17 months and 4 years.
And do you have the sense that you would like for them to benefit from your, other than, you know, you're earning a living to support them, that you're going to be able to inspire them to have the same kind of hope and faith and perseverance that you've had?
Oh, yes. My 4-year-old, you know, I want, you know, she's very smart for a 4-year-old. And I want the best for them. You know, I hope that they can see that I did, you know, the schooling wasn't just for me, but it was for them also. You know, so that I could provide for them, you know, and that they could see that, you know, that school does help and it'll promote them to get high up in education.
Okay. I would assume that that was probably one of your motivations, is that you're doing it for them in a broader sense.
Oh, yes.
And you grew up in Austin.
Yeah, primarily, yes.
And you graduated from high school at what time?
In 1982.
What's happened before you went into the ITT program? You had mentioned working at various jobs. But why didn't you pick up on this kind of thing earlier? What took you so long to come around to it?
Well, when I first got out of high school, I said, well, I tried others, a community college right out of high school, and I wasn't ready. And I said, oh, let me take a couple years off. And a couple led to being 7 and 8 years. It just, the kids came along, and that held back a little bit. And I had some free time this time. I had a newborn, and it gave me some extra time to sit back and think, maybe this is the right time.
I'm just wondering if the timing on this is part of it. You all are older students than, for instance, the average probably that goes into college.
Honestly, Rich, with our type of vocational training, they're just about an average student. We do have a number of students that come right out of high school. We have a number of students like Brenda and Mike who've been out for a while and then come back. We have some people that finish up their military obligation, maybe retire from the military and then come into school. We've got a few retired people that want to come back and get some retraining. So
it's a mix.
It's a mix, absolutely.
Well, I'm just wondering if you see a difference, though, between the ones who just kind of from the cradle to the grave, as far as just one school after another, and those who take some time off to sort of find themselves and find their way around.
Well, I think a student like Mike or Brenda, when they've been out and worked a while, they bring to the educational process their own life experiences. Brenda has juggled trying to work and manage her children and go to school. She gives to us as a school and to the employer someone who really knows how to handle a little pressure. And Mike, his motivation's probably pretty good. He doesn't want to stay out in the hot sun anymore. It's a little different than someone who hasn't worked. Now he knows the kind of job that he wants, the kind of place that he wants. Makes him a little stronger.
I've already been down that other road a little ways. I didn't like it.
Did your experience in the military make a difference in that regard, too?
Yes, there's no way that you can spend time in the military and it not affect the rest of your life.
In what way for you?
It made the getting up and being on time and having to be there, there was no sweat there. Once I starting was the hard part. Once I got going, then it was easy then. But had lots of practice at it.
You felt yourself maybe a little bit ahead of the game when you came to the school in terms of having had that life experience, knowing that there's no nonsense. If you're going to spend this money to get this program to make good on it.
Want every penny's worth I can get out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't begrudge you a penny of that.
Nope.
And I would, in our time that is with us yet, just do a little bit of a summary on the hope side of it, because I have a feeling that this nation is going through a crisis of hope. You alluded to it earlier. I mean, we have pioneered in regard to such things as semiconductors and other technological breakthrough, and then Japan takes it and really goes to town with it, and we've somehow in our educational program feeling like we're slipping behind. I heard one state legislator, Senator Barry Antos, recently in terms of dropouts, saying, you know, if we don't make a change here, this overseas competition is going to eat our lunch. So the extent to which you represent a hope, not just for individuals, but for a larger society,
for the country.
You sense that?
Absolutely. That's why we do it.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the big motivators for all of us.
Not just to make money.
That's a nice part, but that's not enough. The real excitement of it is to see graduates walk across the stage and to see their families. That's really the excitement of it. The money factor is obviously there, but you can't buy the excitement on their faces and the knowledge of knowing these people, well-trained, excited, are going to go out into the workplace and make this better, and that somehow we had a little part in it.
Do you have family there at your graduation, Mike?
Yes, I did. They came and watched. They didn't expect me to get any awards or anything. They were quite surprised.
I see. But pleased just that you got your degree and we're on with it, too.
Yeah, they were. They supported me a lot, though.
What about, in your case, Brenda, who was there to support you?
I had several family members. My children were there, and my mom.
They were excited about that? Your
yes.
Your kids?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Your children, again, are how old?
17 months and a 4-year-old.
Now, this is being aired just the week before Halloween. Are they going to be out doing their thing?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
What are they going to be this year?
It's not decided just yet.
I see.
They will be out there.
And so when they're learning to trick or treat, and the 17-month has a ways to go on that, I think one of the things that you can do is have them look in on the program with us and let this be a reminder of the hope that you bring to all of us. And to all of you, I'd like to thank you for being here today. And I'd like to express appreciation to our viewers for joining us and witnessing how Margaret Harrison, Mike Henry, and Brenda Rice have given us this insight into their experiences. And on behalf of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, I'm Richard Thompson, thanking you for watching. Joining us next week, please. Peace be with you. For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472